And we're back. Sorry about the quick interruption. We were just about to go back to the board one encounter between Pavel Ilyanov and Alexei Shirov. So where did we leave this one off?
White had just played h3, and here Shirov had decision: does he retreat the bishop or does he capture on f3? And he decided to save some time here.
Let's maybe just wait until we... Okay, there's the board.
There's the board there, right, brilliant. And you can see the player Pavel Ilyanov there, and there we have the board. Shirov not at the board at the moment. And Shirov just decided, okay, it looks like Shirov's gone for a very opening. He's just taken on f3, and now he's gone e6. And you can see why he's exchanged off his light square bishop, because if you look at imagine that bishop being on the highlighted square there, c8, it'd be a really bad piece stuck behind the pawns like this. So that's okay, a solid positional way of playing. d3, and now Shirov finishes his development. Bishop d6, bishop g2. Bishop was not great there, and White's maybe getting ready to move these pawns forwards. Shirov just castles, knight d2. So White still hasn't committed to going c4 or e4. But when White plays a move like knight d2, he normally continues with the move e4. So e4 looks like the standard response. c6, e4. So we saw Naiditsch play in this manner earlier in the tournament.
You know, I have to say, if I saw this position, the black position, I probably wouldn't guess this was Shirov playing.
No, he's playing very solid, isn't he, nowadays, Shirov? But I think that's also quite to do with his opponents. Give Shirov a chance and he will come to life. But when you're facing an opening like this, the Reti system, which is probably a very good choice from Ilyanov, Pavel Ilyanov, you haven't got much choice except to play solid, because you can't really make things that interesting unless you do something like the Dutch on move one. Okay, he's gone e5, so he's pushed forwards now. White plays what a standard move in actual fact, a4, and this is often very useful, maybe to stop b5, gain some space on the queen side, potentially later on to put that pawn on a6 and just attack the black pawn structure, the base of the pawn chain, which is b7. So Alexei stops the pawn in its tracks, goes a5, and now White takes on d5, and an interesting move here. I mean, it's quite clear to see what White's strategy is now. It's about this bishop on g2. He's got the bishop pair because Alexei swapped on f3. This bishop wants to come to life. That's why he opened it up a little bit by taking on d5. Yes, he gives black the center, but he's opened up the position for his bishops, and he figures that these pawns are not very mobile anyway. They can't really move anywhere. So he now plays a very interesting move, and we've seen this quite a lot in this tournament, and it looks very logical. We have more moves to catch up on, but he goes knight b1. And why do you play that then, Fiona? Knight b1.
So you're rerouting the knight. You're also opening the way for the bishop on c1. I guess the knight from d2 could only really go to f3 or b3, but none of these squares, I think, promise the knight a bright future. So I guess the knight will now go either to c3 or a3, and then maybe to b5 in the future. Although, or could White possibly ever go for a c4 push somewhere after knight a3? I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think it's just going to bring the knight to c3. If Shirov ever moves the d pawn, that would be horribly positionally for black. I mean, for example,
I don't think he can do that.
And if he defends that pawn, like you say, he's created this outpost now with the moves a4, a5. These moves have really helped him gain a foothold on the queen side. So the knight looks fantastic on the b5 square. You can never move that away. But so it's just a really nice maneuver. And also now your bishop can come to g5 to also pressurize d5. It looks on the board like they've played more moves, but I don't know what move's been played. Maybe he did move the knight to a3, because it looks like
a lot more moves.
It looks like that actually occurred, Fiona, and you may have been right there.
It looks like he did go to a3, and Alexei gave up his second bishop for the knight. So we're not getting the moves just now. I suggest we move on to board 2, and we'll come back to this one later when we've actually received the moves. So let's go to Hu Yifan against Fabiano Caruana.
And this was the Italian game, slow manoeuvring battle here. Seems like the game's a little bit more relaxed today, aren't they? A little bit more chilled today. Not so much
I
violence
feel like
going on.
it's more like every second day we get a crazy day, and then a more quiet day again.
And then they need to relax. They need to have a day off. So they play one crazy game, don't they? And they're like, that's enough. Need to have a rest tomorrow. Need to have a day off. So yeah, okay. Well, Bishop E6 played, and now Hu Yifan goes Knight
It's
A.
promising for the last round though, because it seems like always the even rounds are the more quiet,
calmer.
the quiet ones. So
the last 3 rounds are just going to be brilliant. I mean, especially the last round, because there's going to be so much money at stake there, so much pressure, and people are going to have to take risks to win. So we're going to get some crazy games there. Now, Knight to A3 was played, and here Black's gone for a strategy of taking on A3 now, so getting rid of that bishop. But the point is, if Rook takes A3, Black, I'm assuming, wants to take on C4 and not allow the knight to take that bishop back, but to force pawn takes C4. And even this should be okay for White, to be honest. I mean, this is not really this double pawns you see quite a lot in this opening. It can be bad having double pawns, but also you've got half open file to attack along now. Maybe a good move for Black here would be B6, because one move I certainly never want to face is C5. I think White probably wants to go C5 and maybe B6, and Black can either do a manoeuvre with a knight to C5, something like that here. So not allowing that, instead White took on E6, bishop takes E6, and we have an interesting little exchange now. Black takes on B2, so they're really just playing suicide bishop game, and they're seeing how much they can take with their bishops. So in this position, after bishop takes B2, well, if you simply capture back on B2, you go pawn down. Black would be, doing extremely well here. So White has to take on F7. Bishop takes F7 check, and now we have equal material, and that little tactical sequence has stopped. And we can see that Black has a B pawn, but White has a C pawn in exchange for that.
An F pawn.
F pawn, yeah, sorry. Queen D7, and now C4 from Hu Yifan. Do we have any more moves there? We must do, because it is...
I think Fabiano is just away from the board, but it's his move.
Okay, it looks like he's gone rook to F8, and now
knight H4.
Knight to H4 to try to bring that knight into one of these squares, either G6 or F5, yeah. Okay. And which pawn is more important? Was it the B pawn or was it the F pawn? I mean, the F pawn, Fabiano is trying to file, so that's
on D4. I bet very much on B2 now, but
then the knight comes into D4. Yeah, I suppose the immediate question is a move like king, and if the knight
to just
beat the queen there. But even here, maybe G6 is a move just to keep that knight out of the game.
But now I can go
bishop
C1,
bishop
maybe.
C1 and knight G8 maybe.
No, I think I'd really rather, because now you are putting pressure on F2. I think as White I would like to get my bishop back and maybe put the bishop on E3.
Okay.
To defend F2.
So what, bishop C1 here?
I guess so.
Okay. Now maybe I'm going to manoeuvre my knight around, knight here, and try to move it here and here or something. It seems fairly even. I mean, again, it's a fairly even battle.
But a very interesting battle, I think.
Yeah.
I think the more I look at it, I think I would quite like Black here. I do like the knights, and the knights have a lot of squares here. There is the open F file, well, semi-open.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on, shall we?
Yep. So let's go to a game we looked at earlier, Dutch between Pitts and Nakamura, which was shaping up very nicely.
It was. We're just going to find that game. Here we go. And the Dutch, you often get very exciting games in the Dutch Open. That's one of the real positives of the opening. And Well, I have to say I kind of prefer white in these types of positions. These types of positions are quite common in Dutch defence. And now h6 was played from Hikaru, so he's forcing that bishop to make a decision. Elizabeth doesn't waste any time and simply takes on f6 and now uses harry the h-pawn. So the h-pawn goes to h5 and, well, black, to avoid doing too much damage to his pawns over here, has to play g5. And now f4 from Elizabeth. So this is already becoming a very interesting game. 2 knights for Elizabeth, 2 bishops for Hikaru. And what will Hikaru be doing in this position? He's got to get his king safe at some point.
Yeah.
He can't allow the king to stay there forever.
What are you going to do with that bishop on c8?
Bishop on c8. Well, let's
just put it to d7 or e6 maybe. Maybe e6 and f7 in the future.
Yeah. A bit concerned about the f5 pawn in some.
Maybe just bishop d7 then.
Maybe bishop d7. I mean, do I have to go g4 first? I'm wondering if black should close it down with g4. Elizabeth's idea, I suppose she's trying to tempt Hikaru into playing g4 because now the knight comes back into the centre and she will certainly try to play e4 next move, opening up the position against the king and using her space advantage. So if you go bishop d7 first, can we still go e4 anyway? It's a move I'd want to play to strike while the king is on e8 and use slight initiative white has in development. Again, the king position. And how would black handle this one? Maybe maybe e4 is not correct here because you can take on e4 and this just allows the black bishop to get in the game. I mean, for example, even if I take the knight, that's what I'd like to take in. Can you grab on a2? Can you take on a2? Looks very risky to take on a2 because I take on f6, but I don't see a good follow-up for white
I was
here.
going to say, I think it looks more risky giving up the a2 pawn.
Looks risky giving up that one, yeah, as well. I mean, if I had a check, I'd be quite happy here, maybe somewhere, because there's only one check you got on a1 at the moment.
Yeah, but I'm not planning to give that check. I've just taken a pawn. I'm going to castle queenside. Yeah,
that's why it's not a good plan. So e4 is not correct. So you have to come up with something else here. Well, I suppose you could go king b1 then, to stop that idea, and then black castles along these lines. You have to be quite careful with your pawn pushes with white, don't you? Because if I go d5, maybe I will play this move, but I don't like allowing this bishop into the game, and black may even just take on c3 straight away with that move. So I'm just trying to work out which pawn pushes Elizabeth wants to play here. I don't know, because if e4 is not really the right way to play, I mean, I could go e4 now, but I'm having second thoughts about e4 because when I play this move, even if you don't have queen takes a2, you've always got bishop to f5, and it seems like maybe I'll just let this bishop in the game.
I think it's another of these positions, again, where I like white at first sight, but you need to be careful not to give the black pieces
too much scope. Yeah.
Okay, so shall we come back to this later? Let's check in with Ellen Mary and Julio Granda.
Okay.
I'm really curious what happened there. If we can find them, there they are. Oh.
I think
and it looks. Okay, so either we have a problem with the DGT boards, or it could be that Alan is still thinking. One or the other. Okay, so I'll just let you pick a game at random. It's a bit early for that game in the day, but.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, let's stick with the top boards because we seem to have some slight issues with the boards, and then at least we can figure out on camera what's going on. So
I'd like to go to Benjamin Bott because he was the hero of yesterday. And
he's playing against the second seed, Wesley, so you're going to say yesterday?
I was saying he was the hero of yesterday with this great win over Hikaru, and now he's got to play an even higher rated player in Wesley So he's obviously on form at the moment, but Wesley was playing very confidently in the opening, and we can see the position on the board. The time on the board, shall we say, that Benjamin is about half an hour down. Now, knight c2 was played, and Wesley had sacrificed the pawn a bit earlier. Knight takes e3. Knight takes e3. and now bishop to e4. So I'm assuming one of Black's strategies is to try to pick off the pawn on e5 at some point, or just to consolidate this bishop. So a4, and we saw Mickey Adams use a similar idea in his game. Attack that pawn on b5. Queen b7, avoiding exchange of queens, consolidating that one. And now bishop to d3, which is intriguing because it's offering this knight here, but okay, you can't take the knight and take the pawn, because if you go bishop takes f3, then queen takes f3 is pinning the knight to the queen. And you also have ideas of bishop to e4 to follow this kind of thing, and this looks very good for white. So bishop to d3, Wesley's decided to take the bishops off the board, and now he's got his king castle, but he still hasn't got his pawn back. He's still a pawn down. You know, he's sacrificed his pawn. It's never been clear exactly how he's going to get it back. So white's taken on b5, queen takes b5, and like I said, we're having a bit of a problem with the live boards at the moment, but we can see.
I was going to suggest we could figure it out, but I think too much has happened. The queens have been swapped off.
We can see the queens have been exchanged,
but there's a white rook on d7. So I guess he maybe played rook d1.
Yeah, the way that this has happened, I think, is it's gone rook d1, rook to a2,
b4. No.
Let's just get this right. So.
Okay, yeah, b4 seems to have been played, although.
Yeah, just trying to work out the right move order. It might have gone rook c8 here first.
Rook d7.
Because this makes more sense if rook d7, rook a2 attacking that pawn.
b4.
Yeah, because you can't take that pawn because of the bishop. So Benjamin a pawn up here still, and Wesley.
And as you can see, the clock times are not accurate either. The real clock times you can see on the camera, of course, are white has 36 minutes, black has an hour and 8. So we are just having some slight issues with the game transmission, but I'm sure it will be sorted very shortly. And I think, is this the position on the board? I think so.
Yeah. So what is happening here? So okay, the first thing we can see is white is a pawn up. He's got a protected pass pawn up, but black's position is very solid. I mean, he's got this great blockader of a knight. A knight is a brilliant blockader on c6. And it's very hard for white to sort of make progress. But, I mean, it's still a pawn. A pawn is a pawn. I would fully think that black would guard the bishop on f8 so the knight can move. So, for example, you can't go knight takes b4 because of rook takes bishop. So, logically thinking, if we defend the bishop first with king to f8, we can renew the threat of knight takes pawn. But is Benjamin just going to play rook b7 here and just try to win the pawn on b5? I mean, this is I think it's looking quite good for Benjamin. Could this be his second big upset of the day? I mean, knight takes b of the tournament, yeah, and then rook takes b5, knight d3 gets a bit tricky here. This is a way that Wesley can try to eliminate some material off the board. Maybe this is drawing. This line is drawing for Wesley, but okay.
I was also wondering if I could bring the knight to c2.
Knight c2 here. Yeah, very wise.
And I'd like to, if possible, bring it
to d4, maybe. Yeah. Some knight to d4 somehow.
But now both my knights are pinned to the defense of. I could go now. I'm maybe threatening rook b7. Yeah.
Try to pick up this pawn. I mean, I would assume that Benjamin's just doing okay because he's always got the pawn. So even if he has to throw the pawn back at Wesley and give that pawn back, he should better equalise by doing that. I would assume that this has got to be going, reasonably well for Benjamin.
So what would you do here as black after knight c2?
After knight c2, I'm trying to work out how I can get enough counterplay. Do I have to play a move like f6 even? I don't like the move f6 for a number of moves, but that is attempting to get my bishop in the game. I've got rook a8 as well with some cheapo threat here. For example, if you go rook to b7 now, then rook takes c2 is my back rank back rank, cheapo threats, and I'll get hit by rook a1.
So maybe here I should just play a move like h3.
Yeah, h3 or h4, one of these guys. And it's now I can try possibly rook a4 with a similar idea of hitting b4, and if I take b4 I might be able to round up c5.
And
so
is it the same if I go rook b7 now?
So rook b7, it might be worse for white now. Knight takes b4 in this position, because take here, rook takes.
Cedric.
Totally forgot about this pawn. Cool, that's only 2 squares away. Yeah, you can't stop that one. Yeah, Cedric is going to become
Cedrina.
Something like that, yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, white must be all right. I mean, I think we just leave that, and the opening, I don't think Wesley will be happy the way the opening's gone, because he wanted some double-edged position where he played for a win, and it looks to me like only Benjamin could be better. He's a pawn up, and you just demonstrate when that c-pawn can be strong. So let's move to another game on the canvas.
Shall we go to Jordan van Foreest?
So Rodstein versus Van Foreest, and this was looking, after knight to e5, to be quite a long, it's going to be a long game, wasn't it? A long sort of manoeuvring game. Knight b d7, bishop g5, and often in these kind of positions, it's always, like I mentioned before, always about the d5 pawn. So white always has the pressure against his pawn, generally giving him some small advantage. h6, bishop f4, both sides finish their development. White also has a little bit of extra space here. It seems like we have some more moves being played. Again, we're going to try to guess what's happened here.
G5 maybe?
G5 at some stage.
Also C5 at some stage.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to wait with this one because we could get it totally wrong. And they seem to have some kind of symmetrical-ish pawn structure at the moment on that game. So not much change there. Let's move over to another one and see if we can get the moves up somewhere else.
Shall we go to... Where shall we go to? Shall we go to Mickey Adams?
Yes, let's go to Mickey. And okay, so again, we have a couple more moves coming through here. After a4, knight d5, we're just wondering where should that bishop go, to g3 or d2? And he moved it to g3, which I think makes a lot of sense here, because you keep it on that strong diagonal. And you can see Gupta has come prepared for the game, and maybe when he gets a bad position, he's going to get this pretend banana gun out and, you know, go, okay, banana. You're eating. I think it's okay to have certain things to have a drink, but
common sense to go away from the board when they eat.
Most players do, yeah, especially in these tournaments. So, like I was telling a story the other day when someone turned up with a very greasy kebab and started eating it in front of fun there. No greasy kebabs are allowed. No b4 played, so white did have to make a decision what to do with that. Sorry, black to decide what to do with that pawn now. a5, attacking the queen and separating the pawns on a6 and b4, because they can no longer guard each other now. Black can't go a5 to defend that pawn. So both of these pawns, both of the black pawns, a little bit weak. The queen comes back to d8, and I would assume a slight advantage for white in this position, just because he's got better development. I prefer his pawn structure. A move like knight to e5 would be the logical continuation here, trying to stop black from moving the knights to the squares he wants to. Can't go knight c6, and he goes knight d7, knight c6 would be a strong move. And this is also a typical plan in a lot of positions to open up the queen's path to even start an attack over on the king's side, so knight to e5 does potentially allow that. And another idea, maybe you can try to get it in onto b6 later on. But okay, it's not that bad for black, because black's going to go bishop b7 and continue, I'm assuming, with something like knight d7. So maybe knight c4 here. This is kind of Mickey manoeuvring. Actually, I think just looking at the board, this is like our new game. What you know? It's like it seems like something like this has occurred, because that knight's got all the way to b7. After bishop takes d6, knight takes d6, queen here, and now we have an exchange here. Has that occurred? Is that the position on the board?
I think that might.
But
we're missing a move for black.
We are. Well, it's black's move. Well, it's Mickey's move here. So somewhere he gained a tempo in that sequence, but this is the position we see.
We should be able to figure this out.
Well, I mean, it's going back a good 6 moves there, and we didn't have any of the moves.
No,
so
but I mean, the white piece is all standing on their right squares.
well, we've lost the tempo somewhere for black, but it doesn't change. It doesn't change the evaluation of the position much. Which Mickey has this very strong bishop on d3, very strong piece, because it doesn't just attack that a6 pawn, stopping the rook from moving, but it also potentially can cause some damage to the black king side. This piece should give Mickey an advantage, I would have thought here in this position. But nothing serious. But it's a typical Mickey small edge here, and it's quite hard for bums. The queen e4 move. I don't know.
I'm still intrigued how we managed to lose a tempo for black. But yeah, there we see Mickey play g3.
Yeah. In a position there, which would cover the knight on f4, stopping a knight to f4. Mickey's slightly better there. Okay, so Fiona, during your chess career, you've played lots of countries. I've seen, like, recently, you are one of the biggest travellers in chess. Is that fair to say? You've sort of seen me travel everywhere?
We were talking about one of our producers yesterday, Leonard Oates. I should really be able to pronounce his name. But yeah, I do travel a fair bit nowadays. It's very often for work. Sometimes I still play, but mostly for work.
What's your favourite place you've been to? Do you have a favourite place that you've ever travelled to? First of all, for chess, what's your top place for chess you've ever travelled to?
Probably Reykjavik. I very much like Reykjavik. Both of us have been there a fair few times.
You have indeed, yeah.
And I think the people are lovely, the place is great, the chess tournament is fantastic.
Yeah. Actually, I think one of the first times I met you was in Reykjavik, and that was after you were night clubbing, should we say? And I remember
Reykjavik does have good nightlife.
It was a number of years ago. I don't know how many years ago was that. I can't even remember. Like 5 years, something like this. So
yes. I'm trying to think. Must have been 2010 or 11. 2010,
yeah. And Luke McShane was pulling some moves
on the
dance floor as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, was I saying? Yeah, dance moves.
So I agree. Reykjavik's also one of my favourite places to go to.
And this year the tournament has been moved to April, so I think it's going to be excellent. It's the first time that the tournament is being held in April, and I'm hoping we'll both be there.
I think so, yeah.
Right, so shall we go back to the games, see if we can figure some more stuff out, see if we have had an update.
Let's have a look at Nayadic's game, because Arkady was playing some very interesting idea, and we'll just pick up the moment where he played h4 in the position to push with h5, and c6 played, knight takes c6, and well, we were just looking at this. Of course, we don't have any update, but it was a very interesting position. This h pawn, I think, was well worth showing, and this little trick had e3 and queen h5 as the idea. So winning a piece, you can't, for example, you can't go bishop takes h6 because of e3 and queen h5 check. So he's forced the black bishop back, and we're not entirely sure what he played it, but Fiona came up with a very good plan of playing just simply b4 and trying to get the bishop on this diagonal. And Erwin had some problems just sorting out his pieces here. Okay, now we'll go back to the live board, shall we?
Let's go back to board 2 maybe, where Hu Yifan is playing against Fabiano Caruana, just below.
Got it.
So, okay, we'll have to, but I think not so much has happened here.
King h7 has occurred, so actually I lost the moves that I put on the board. So c4 was played. Now rook to f8, I'm assuming it was the next move. And now knight to h4 and king to h7. So we had this in our analysis.
Yeah, we did have, I think knight h4 was already on the board.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring my bishop to c1, I think.
Yeah.
But Hu Yifan is still thinking, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The only problem with this is you allow the knight into d4. That's
yeah, but is it such a big deal?
It's quite a big knight.
Maybe it will be a deal when it lands on f4.
Maybe. I mean, I'm thinking how both sides, where they want to put their pieces, and in this kind of position, that's exactly what we should be doing here. And if I can get my other knight to c5, then that's the arrangement I want to go for. That'd be my perfect setup. One knight on d4, one knight on c5, pressure on the f file. I mean, as well as bishop c1, we can see Arkady there again in the background. Just wondering what other moves might be playable. I think you're right though. Black's position seems a bit preferable, doesn't it, to play here? So a little bit preferable in this position. I mean, bishop c1, knight d4, and then black has this idea, moving the queen, moving the knight around. Maybe white can play bishop e3 now, as Fiona suggested. If I can capture that knight, I double black's pawns. So as black here, I may even just retreat for now and come back into the game later. But then there's this knight f5 idea. And we can see the point behind Fiona's play is to stop g6. I think this is the whole idea. Get the bishop on this diagonal, so g6, kicking that knight away is not possible. That's why the bishop has been rerouted. And actually, if you get knight f5 in here, it's okay, totally okay. And you've got queen d2 ideas coming up next, attacking the h6 pawn. But Ho Yifang deciding on the right strategy here. What else can Ho Yifang play in this position? I mean, if she goes knight in straight away to f5, then g6 was what we're assuming Fabiano would play. But even here, this is not such a bad idea, because the knight can also try to fight for control of the centre as well, coming into d5. I suppose now knight to h5 is the move. Rather than going to c5, this knight can come to a more aggressive square, and like white try to come into f4. I mean, maybe it's slightly easier to play for Fabiano, but I would assume the proper assessment for this would be just equality, really. Still quite an equal position. I think Ho Yifang has probably lost any opening advantage she should have with the white pieces, though. I remember Karpov, you know, they used to say of Karpov, they asked him, what's your strategy when you play a white or black? And you know, like I think this is the typical, like as they say, the Russian school of chess going back some years. He said that he would just try to equalise with black, and then he'd try to outplay his opponents from an equal position. And as white, of course, his aim would be just to try to get some slight advantage, or even, he said, not even an advantage, but a position he enjoyed playing, a position he could outplay his opponent in. And of course, Karpov was Karpov. But Magnus Carlsen is really, in my eyes, the new Karpov. He has a similar style to Karpov, but he just, for someone so young as well, it's so impressive, and he's kind of
players, because we are drifting. I'm hearing we might have games moves back, so let's see. I saw is already over and he won, so
okay, well, we could have a quick look at that just to see how he won so quickly.
Yeah, we will see if he. Let's go down if and the game seems to. So I think we're back. Let's have a quick look at David's game. It was the last one on the list.
Well, it's a really good result for David. Winning in 21 moves of black is something that is not easy to do nowadays against strong players. And his opponent is actually a Grandmaster, Kindambi, and from India. So defeating that quickly is very impressive. So we'll go through the moves reasonably at a reasonable pace. So Grunfeld, exchange Grunfeld. Even how do you win from this opening? This is like quite a boring manoeuvring battle. And I'm just very intrigued to see how he makes progress here. Now, castling is okay, but I think in this position, what most players do to really test black strategy is to go knight e5 straight away, just trying to use the extra tempo you have. When you have a symmetrical position, dead symmetrical pawn structure, you've got to use your pieces. So knight to e5 is a move very often played in this position to try to get some edge. You can even support that knight in some situations of f4, but it just makes black's development a little bit hard. And even castles here, I'm not sure if this is the right strategy, because now David does that same idea to his opponent. He goes knight e4, and queen b3 now played, attacking d5.
I think let's just quickly play through this game, because I think the rest of the games are now updating. So let's just see how he managed to win so quickly. and then come back to the games in progress. Tricking his opponent into thinking he might go for the repetition, but
now taking on c4, and well, there's some trick coming up. So he took on a7. I mean, let's have a look. Well, I mean, it looks like White's got himself in some problems with his queen. He's grabbed here, but now David can eliminate the strong bishops, and e5 is a very strong move, because the main idea is you take away the c7 square. If you go rook a8 in this position, then queen c7 and White is okay, but after the move e5, well, it's horrible. D takes e5.
And you can't take with the bishop, because then the knight is hanging on d2, I guess.
Yeah, well, the same thing. And just rook a8 and the queen is absolutely trapped, so that's not how to play with the white pieces. Where did it go wrong there? I'm just interested. I mean, in this position, well, I mean, I think White's whole strategy wasn't that inspiring, to be honest. I mean, queen b3 could even be a slight error, because you're running into the attack of the knight. And after knight takes c3, maybe even here White had to just say, right, I'm not playing for an advantage anymore, I'm just trying to get equality, I should keep the symmetrical nature. Because when he goes b takes c3, he's even got a worse position pawn structure wise now in some ways, because this c4 square. And then he starts going a little bit adventurous with this move, and that soon gets in trouble, that one. But the major mistake must be here, queen to a6. You've got to move the queen somewhere else here.
Back. Yeah.
Queen a6 is just a big error. Actually, David had another try there, didn't he? So it's quite funny. And then he just took here, and it looks like it's completely lost here. So very nice, easy game for David Howe there to win that one. Nice,
right, so shall we now see how Alan Mary is getting on against Julio Granda? I was really just because that it looked quite greedy taking that pawn on, what was it, on e4?
It did. It looked very risky taking that pawn, and we were wondering here, I mean, it was quite brave play, and okay, we have had a lot of moves here, and Granda went bishop takes d4, didn't he? But he's given up his strong defender of his king side. So we now follow the variation we were wondering about.
We were looking at this, yeah.
And this seemed pretty forcing around here, but in this position we were mainly, well, we were only concentrating on bishop takes knight. White has kept more pieces on the board with knight to e5 here, trying to keep that that one trapped, the knight on h6 trapped. Bishop takes e1, d6, and now b4, so pushing that queen potentially to a worse square. Bishop takes e6, h6. Very forcing line this. No wonder they both took a lot of time, because all these moves are captures. Look how many captures we have. And the last move that's not a capture is queen to h4.
And this is similar.
It is similar to what
we're
looking at.
It's very similar to what we were looking at.
Yeah. So what do you think here, Fiona? I have some orange.
Except the position we were looking at, the pawn, the black pawn that is now on e5 was still on d7, obstructing our bishop.
I still think there's some danger for black here. I mean, I know black is a whole 2 pawns up, but I know from experience it's very similar to Dutch plans or the Grand Prix. When you swing this queen over to the king side, and when you've got your knight as well, 2 very good attacking pieces. Black has, and you know, okay, the one thing that helps black a lot here is that white can't get a rook into f1 as well, combined with this, because that square f1 is covered. But you're attacking with your knight and queen. Can black find a good way to stop this from becoming too much for him?
Well, I think it's a good thing that my queen is covering the f1 square. I think that's very important, because I wouldn't be happy to see your queen coming to f1.
So let's have a look at some possibilities here. I mean, what does
I think
black
you need
play?
to do something about the pawn on h7. You can't drop that.
And if you take on h7, the black king becomes
very vulnerable.
Yeah. So
I think either king g7 or h5.
One of these moves. Now, if you move the king, if you go king g7,
then you drop the pawn on e7. And now knight g4, yeah. Can we look at h5, which also looks very risky, but...
So h5 here, 2 moves here. We've got queen g5, trying to sneak in, capture a pawn, or even knight g5 is probably not getting anywhere. So queen g5 it must be. We must try to get in here. My main idea, I think, is actually queen h6 check rather than grabbing that pawn. And then go knight g5.
Yeah, okay, then I probably have to just play king g7.
King g7.
No, but I'm earlier, because then there's no point to flick in h5, I guess.
Okay. So if we go king g7 here, I'll take on e7. As I said, this is very dangerous because there's a big threat of knight g5 coming in here, and knight takes e5. I mean, if you go...
Okay, now bishop e6?
Bishop e6, and I go knight g5.
And now I go queen c4.
Probably the only move, queen c4. And again, it's quite fortunate for black that this rook can't come in the game in this position. Do I have to go knight g5? Do I have something else here? Ah, maybe this is not getting enough. Not quite enough, actually.
And black has not played king g7, he's played king g8. Right.
Maybe concerned about some check on the dark squares and some variation. And again, I expect he just wants to play bishop to e6 after a next move. And if we go knight g5 now, he has h5. He's probably holding this.
I think black might be holding on. I mean, he might be able to keep things together and there'll just be a pawn up.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, let's go back to our top board. Where shall we go to?
Well, I think we should look at the ball 1 encounter again. Quick update there, because we were a couple of moves down there. Then maybe we can take a quick break in a second after doing a roundup of the top boards. And this was the only 2 leaders in the competition. So you have Ilyanov and Shirov are both on, how many points are they on? They're on
4.5 out of 5.
4.5 out of 5. So if one player wins this, they go into the lead on their own. And we had Shirov here now play bishop b4, and that's clearly to try and stop knight c3, or if knight c3 is played, now black can at least exchange off that knight, so you don't have to move this pawn. I mean, one of the major positional problems with this whole thing is that if you ever move this pawn, then I think structurally speaking you're in a lot of trouble. Look at that bishop, and you just release that piece. So bishop b4, and now c3, so the bishop simply comes back to d6. So you've given white a couple of tempo there, in just to stop this knight c3, all for that one reason. So this is certainly not a fire on the ball game, more of a strategic game. Knight to a3, that knight would be very good on b5. That knight would clearly be better than the bishop on b5. So black decides to swap off the bishop for the knight. And now rook to c8, putting it on a half open line. Rook b3, attacking b7 and maybe coming to b5. b6, so the rook does come to b5. So interesting way to get the rook into a nice attacking position there, where it can attack black's center. Knight c5, d4, pawn takes d4, queen takes d4, gaining an isolated pawn.
You know, I actually think this is quite an interesting position, because it's not so often that we see the actual bishop pair against a pair of knights.
No. It looks pretty horrible for black, I thought. I mean, I really don't like black's position here. I think black is in serious trouble. I mean, someone's asking which nationality is Shirov. Now, I think he's Latvian again. He was Spanish. He did change federation to become Spanish, but you can see from his flag there, that's a Latvian flag, isn't it?
Well, he is Latvian born. He then eventually switched.
Consider the two. Unless you can get some tricks trying to trap this rook, this is the one thing. If you can get that in, then it's a...
I was just looking at bishop f4, and then I wondered if he can then go g5.
Move bishop e3 is a mistake because of knight d6. I'm assuming this wins the exchange here, and you don't really want to give that one up without a fight. So Fiona's saying if
Maybe
bishop...
the rook is just trapped though. I'm not
So
sure.
if bishop f4, then you want to play g5 with the idea of moving the knight back. Again, big move to play.
Okay, I think we should leave this one for now, but we will come back to it shortly. But meanwhile, we will go back to the game of the day, and that is Max Illingworth, who is playing against Vidit. And the question is, can he pull off another upset?
Right, so rook b3, and Vidit, who's playing some very risky chess in this double-edged Sveshnikov, had a number of choices here, and he's actually gone for the all-in option.
And he had an almost 25-minute think before playing e3. It's quite a lot.
And we can see the time there that Vidit is very short of time.
His position, Max already had around 50 minutes, and now 3 was played, which we thought for the...
Yeah, it's quite. I mean, this is all in because Black's given us he's in serious trouble. I mean, because it's 2 pawns, it's 2 pawns. So
especially with a pawn as far advanced as a6 and defended.
So what can he do here? There might be other options like queen to h4, and any result is possible. I mean, queen h4 looks natural. Maybe an idea of something like that is coming in these 2 moves as well. So you can move. Theory is so good. Look, I mean, it's so good. It's not going to queen for a while. It's going to take some moves. So Black's still got to go knight here. Let's have a look at the greediest idea of pawn takes everything. I want to get my rook back over. I want to clear everything on this rank so my rook can come over to defend. So, for example, queen h4, take here, knight g4. Maybe this is too slow, though. I was kind of hoping here. There's nearly some beautiful checkmates here. Because you're threatening queen takes h2, checkmate. If I go rook h3, this is on the verge of disaster. There's a queen here check. You have to go king h1. And it's such a pity this queen's not on c... Oh, no, I was thinking I wanted to get queen g1, but I'm going mad. But OK, bishop the way to play this. Now this is dangerous. This is really dangerous. All the Black's pieces have come in. So could we improve there?
Actually, instead of knight e5, I was also thinking about if a move like queen e7, threatening...
e7, another... OK.
Yeah.
I mean, it's much easier, actually, in this position to be the kind of defender, because Max is pretty much going to be...
Nicely, but we will come back to it after...
result as possible. I mean, queen h4 looks natural. Maybe an idea of something like is coming in, these two moves as well. So you can move. Theory is so good. Look, I mean, it's so good. It's not going to queen for a while. It's going to take some moves. So black's still got to go knight here. Let's have a look at the greediest idea of pawn takes everything. I want to get my rook back over. I want to clear everything on this rank so my rook can come over to defend. So for example, queen h4, take here, knight g4. Maybe this is too slow though. I was kind of hoping here. Oh, there's nearly some beautiful checkmates here. Because you're threatening queen takes h2, checkmate. If I go rook h3, this is on the verge of disaster. There's a queen here check. You have to go king h1. And it's such a pity this queen's not on c. Oh no, I was thinking I wanted to get queen g1, but I'm going mad. But okay, bishop the way to play this. Now this is dangerous. This is really dangerous. All the black's pieces have come in. So could we improve there?
Actually, instead of knight e5, I was also thinking about if a move like queen e7, threatening
e7, another. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's much easier actually in this position to be the kind of defender, because Max is pretty much going to be
nicely, but we will come back to it after.